Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another TheeSportsScoop video. So we not just got the news, actually. It broke today that Matt Eberflus, I'm probably saying that wrong, old now Colts defensive coordinator, has been hired as the Bears' new head coach. Obviously, with Matt Nagy leaving, there's a ton of candidates. I literally, the last video we did was actually about the Bears, about their new general manager who they just brought in a day or two ago, Brian Poles, who now moves quickly and goes and gets Eberflus. I'm just going to be giving my thoughts on the hiring, why I don't think it was a great hiring, why I think he may have moved too fast, and then I'll give him some why I do like it, why I don't like it, give him my thoughts on it, talking about the impact on Justin Fields, the impact on this team. So if you guys are a Chicago Bears fan of the NFL, make sure you guys stay tuned. Yeah, we're going to be talking all things Bears. A lot of Bears stuff recently. Let's get into it. All right, so as I talked about, the Chicago Bears bring in Matt Eberflus, Colts defensive coordinator, now as their new head coach. Brian Poles moving quickly and signing him, not, as I said, a day or two after he was signed and brought in as the new general manager of the Chicago Bears. And Eberflus, obviously 51 years old, has been in the league for a long time, definitely has experience. Obviously a very successful Colts defense, a Colts team that, while it did underperform this season, I don't think it was necessarily the Colts the defense, which was at fault. But, it's definitely an interesting hire. I think looking at it in hindsight, I would have definitely liked to see more of an offensive-minded coach. And while I know Matt Nagy was not a defensive coordinator, was obviously an offensive coordinator before he went to the Chicago Bears. I do think he was more of a defensive coach in terms of offense, in terms of what we saw from the Bears on offense. I think they were, even I guess with Mitchell Trubisky it was a little bit different. They were definitely able to put up points, especially this year with the ability of Justin Fields. And I think while Allen Robinson wasn't great, you had Darnell Mooney, David Montgomery got injured. I think it was a defensive offense, if that makes sense. And I think Matt Nagy, while of course he's not Eberflus, was just outdated and wasn't really with the modern NFL game. That being said, Eberflus, to me, I'm not sure. I think he's probably around the same. I'm not sure what Matt Nagy is. I would assume he's around the same age as Eberflus. I would assume 50 or so, maybe 40s. I'm not sure, but again, that doesn't matter too much. Eberflus, obviously, I think, before I get into why I don't like it, I think obviously it's an upgrade. Anything's an upgrade over Nagy. So I think if you're a Bears fan, before you jump at it in too much of a pessimistic way, anything is really better than Nagy. Although, he probably some successful seasons. Getting him out was the priority. And I think obviously with Fields there, I think that was what I think polls to me, why I didn't like it that much is you look at some of the other coaches they brought on, the Lions defensive coordinator, the coaches that they brought in, Brian Flores, who I would have loved to see, the guys he brought in, I think all to me seemed like better candidates. That being said, I've actually, I've been looking at a ton of videos. A lot of people actually really liked Eberflus just as a candidate for coaching this year. So before I just don't know if the fit for the Bears necessarily was the best choice, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think when you kind of look at it, again, like I said, we want to see an offensive-minded coach, especially with Justin Fields now being young. That being said, defensive coordinators who go to offensive coaches can still be great. But I think if you're to kind of sample size it, looking at Saleh this year, was fantastic defensive coordinator. The 49ers consistently pump out great defensive coordinators. You look at what he did with Zach Wilson, and I know it's very contradictory because Zach Wilson was arguably the best rookie quarterback or had the best progression. He had the most progression throughout the season. I just think, to me, maybe when you bring in Eberflus, Fields may struggle a lot at the start. Not saying he won't be able to pick it up, but I do think Eberflus may have a bit of trouble developing a quarterback because it's much different going from a defense to an offense to now have to, obviously you're not the only guy developing that QB, but I think it will be a little bit of a change. The reason I don't like it as much is not because of Eberflus. I think, like I touched on earlier, it's more because of the options that were available. Brian Flores, to me, I think would be the perfect option. Someone who obviously was not a big fan of Tua, someone who really liked Justin Fields, and I think someone who obviously we know was a very good coach. Shouldn't have been. He should still be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, but he got moved on, or he got fired. I think that would have been the great. Obviously, as a Giants fan, I'm pretty happy because that now, maybe he's the front runner for the Giants. But to me, Flores was the front runner and Dan Quinn obviously as well, who ends up now staying in Dallas. Were all they Eberflus I didn't even know was in the conversation. Look, I really like Brian Poles though. I love that signing. If you guys saw my video, I love that signing. So putting trust in him, I will. But I think. Sound like a Star Wars quote, sound like a Yoda, but again, this is not some atrocious hiring, is what I just want to say. But I think if you're a Bears fan, again, I'd love to see. I saw some mixed emotions. I saw some Bears fans were like, I don't really know how to think about this yet. I would have liked Flores, I would have liked Dan Quinn. And then others where I think Dan Quinn and Eberflus, I think it's a little bit of my main one is the Brian Flores signing. I think they really should have pushed to see that one. Again, I'm not in the Bears organization. I don't know what they were thinking behind the scenes, why he ended up not being the guy for them. But to me, again, as I said, Brian Flores was the guy. I think it would have been fantastic to develop Fields. That being said, Eberflus obviously has connections with prior Bears head coach. I forgot his name. I literally just watched the video, but I forgot the prior head coach name. And so again, I think Eberflus definitely has things to offer. That's what I'll say. He has things to offer, and I think he's a good coach. And I'll go back to, let's look at some of the other options that they did have. All right, so I just want to, obviously we saw some of the other options. So I just want to bring up here Jim Caldwell. I was forgetting his name. Jim Caldwell obviously interviewed as well, currently on the coaching staff for the Lions. But he, to me, seemed very intriguing. Obviously, the Lions not the most attractive organization this season, but he, to me, when he interviewed with Brian Poles, and I saw the interview come out, had a very, very promising outlook on his plan for Justin Fields. So he basically created an entire kind of offensive scheme around Justin Fields, which is very interesting. So he already interviewed with the Bears for the coaching vacancy, and obviously had an extra significance with the Bears' new general manager. Obviously, so he interviewed with Brian Poles solely. So he was only with Brian Poles. And so he interviewed Caldwell first. So obviously they brought in Eberflus. Caldwell to me seemed a very good option. And look, right here, Caldwell has been the most polarizing figure on the Bears list of candidates to fill their head coach vacancy. And that's exactly how I'd phrase it. He to me seemed like the most polarizing, seemed like he really was invested in this team. So we'll look at it here again. Generated and forced. Kyle, because again, 6-7 years old, which is old, but again, I don't think it says it here. So right. So I think again, what they probably were looking at here was, all right, well, he's 67. Our general manager is 30 years younger than him. Our quarterback's much younger. That probably wasn't the greatest option, which again, I actually very much respect. I think younger head coaches are starting to trend up a little bit more than the older guys. So that makes sense to me. But I think that was the kind of, if I was the Bears GM, if I was Brian Poles, I want to interview a potential head coach and have them be like, because we know the whole reason. There would be not a lot of candidates for this, or not a lot of people who would want this job if it weren't for Justin Fields and the potential of this offense and already the level that defense is at. So if I was Brian Poles, I want this new candidate to come in just like Caldwell did, although he didn't end up getting the job, and be like, look, this is the offense that we want for Justin Fields. This is the offense that we're going to play around him. This is how we're going to be successful. Because this season, no matter how you put it, Justin Fields was not successful as the Bears quarterback. Again, showed a ton of flashes. We know the rushing upside he has, but what did not look successful, whether no matter which way you look at it. So that I think was very interesting to me about Caldwell. But then again, going back to Eberflus, I at the end of the day, I don't know if much people know a ton about him. And obviously we know the success he's had with the Colts defense, but the only reason I look at this, and this might be a casual NFL fan, which is I'm fine with that, having a take like that, is if I were a GM, if I was Brian Poles, I don't know if I'm saying a GM, they have one, and I was looking for a new coach to build around my young sky-high potential quarterback, I would want an offensive-minded coach. Brian Flores, and again, I guess all the candidates they kind of interviewed were defensive-minded. So again, like I said, I could be completely wrong. I'm not in that organization. I don't know what they were thinking. That is just me. I've never hired a head coach for a NFL team, so I don't, again, that is solely my thoughts. So let me know if that makes sense. Again, not someone who covers head coaching stuff or kind of the potential fit. So that to me is the only concern. That was the only thing where I was like, all right, I don't know much what to think, because that wasn't. It's not like they signed. It's not like they signed Adam Gase or something where it's like, oh my, like it's not something like that. It was Eberflus, who I didn't really know much of. I knew he had success, but I wasn't like, oh yeah, this is a great signing. It definitely took me a little bit to be like, does this make sense? And again, the only reason that kind of put me off about it was because it was not any of the guys that I heard, the mainstream guys like Dan Quinn, like Caldwell, or like Brian Flores. So that was the only thing that kind of I didn't like as much. That being said, I hope Eberflus, I hope him success. I want the Chicago team to be good, but I think my only concern right now is, will he really be able to develop Justin Fields like that coming from a defensive coordinator again? Because I feel like we've seen what Dable's done. I mean, as a Giants fan, I want Dable the most, or Flores Dable the most, because we saw what he did with Josh Allen. Obviously, it wasn't his own reason, but we saw what he did with Josh Allen. And Daniel Jones, as much as he does not look like Josh Allen, I think he could, if coached well, could get up to near that level. Not Josh Allen level. I'm not going to say that, and I know we're going to get comments about it, but near that level if you're a coach, right? Again, it's Daniel Jones, so I could be completely wrong. But that's neither here nor there. So let me know what you guys think about him in the comments down below. As always, make sure let me know what you think about Eberflus in the comments down below. And as always, follow us on social media as well. You can find us over there. Always messing up that, excuse me. You can find us over there at TheeSportsScoop. Hope you guys did enjoy the video. Thank you so much for watching. Key and McDermott, let me know what you guys think. Follow us on social media. I already said that. We'll see you next time.